You're welcome to the spot, you know the truth is here. Bronx Tales on a beat, we see it clear. All the cases, all the shadows, we break it down. Pull up a seat, join the fam in this town. Every story matters, every voice you bring. We don't just talk the talk, we let the facts sing. Logan and Bronx, yeah, they lead the way. Shining light in the dark every single day. Yeah. Curiosity welcome, questions never wrong. Here you belong, it's a family strong. From cold cases to the ones unsolved. Together we uncover, together we evolve. No gossip, no rumors, we keep it real. Every detail matters, every clue you feel. We vibe, we learn, we investigate. Bronx Tales True Crime, let's elevate. We stay with us every night and day. We uncover the truth in our own way. Come here, let your mind explore. Bronx Tales True Crime, always more in store. Yeah, welcome home. Yeah, you're never alone.
Happy Monday. Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Bronx Tales. Welcome back to Bronx Tales. It's Monday. We're having a great day. I hope all of you are having a great day. We have to give a big welcome back to Miss Mandy, my bestie. It is so good to see you. We have missed you so much. I hope you know that you have a community behind you if you need us. Hey, Beach Babe. Hi, Christina, Carol, Miss Bianca, of course. Let's see. Oh, we got Critic Rick in the house. He's always early. He's here before I am. How was everybody's weekend? I hope everybody was at least got some relaxation time in there. Did something nice for yourself. You guys, I'm in the Chicago area. It is over 70 degrees here today. It is warm. It's crazy, this weather, isn't it? All right. So today, everything is alleged in our opinion only. I'm going to be showing a lot of different clips, so just bear with me as I flip back and forth getting the right stuff on the screen. However, I do also want to say that I'm going to be going over clips that are made from doctors and body language, I guess, experts in a sense. I am not a body language expert. I'm just very interested in it. I have been for such a long time. I did study psychology, so I feel like I can put my 2 cents in there somewhere. Plus, it's the internet, so why can't we, right? So that's what we're going to be doing today. Hey, Fizzy. 71 in Toledo. Jesus, criminy. It got warm, and then it's supposed to snow in like 3 days, so who knows? So I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here. Hey, Jamie McCready. Going to throw my hey, Jeff. Going to throw my 2 cents in here on what I think just from literally learning and being a sponge when it comes to body language. Very interested in that. So, you know, we retain a lot of information when we have a lot of interest in something, whether we went to school for it or not, doesn't always have a lot of bearing on it. So let me add this to the screen here. What I want to do is specifically go over body language. And I want to look at what some people might refer to certain body language as somebody being a psychopath, and what we can expect to see in somebody who is referred to as a psychopath, or largely thought they're a psychopath by the general public. And maybe if that could be confused with somebody that has autism. It can very much resemble each other. And I want to make that very clear in some of these clips that I'll be showing. I do believe that they are very biased, and they definitely think Bryan Kohberger is guilty. And I feel like that's known, and you can sense that in the clips. I'm not discrediting the doctors in these cases or in these clips. I'm just not sure that they're taking an unbiased approach, and I'm not sure that they're putting in the autism factor either. So I want to just kind of go over where we can see maybe some similarities, or where we can really definitely see some differences. So I want to play this first. Whoops.
If I'm in a scary situation, something scares me, or somebody jumps out, or there's a loud noise, I'm going to pull my upper eyelids back.
Like crazy eyes.
Yeah. Okay, but that matches. But we don't ever in fear. The only time we will pull our upper eyelids back and hold them is roller coaster, haunted house, a terror.
Loud noise.
Right.
Yeah.
We never hold our upper eyelids pulled way back, except when we're nuts.
When you're a psychopath.
There's a lot of people in the public eye. If you look at the pictures of them,
They have their eyes like that a lot.
they are always like, they're showing their sclera. And there's something about mental instability and volatility, and I'm not safe. I don't know what it is. And I've done a lot of research, but I almost always find that somebody who's committed a heinous crime and a really violent crime, they're almost always like, 20, 30% of their pictures that you can find up on the blind, where they're holding that.
That's interesting.
If I'm in a scary...
I also find that very interesting. So basically what she's saying is, in a lot of times, psychopaths will, just in general conversation, hold their eyes up. And it's not, there's a difference in just up, and there's a difference in back. There's up and there's back. Like there's a difference in that. And if you keep that in mind when you watch maybe some people that are in politics, or even salespeople, or like she said, people that have committed very violent, heinous crimes, you can notice that if you're thinking about it and remembering to tell yourself to try and notice that. Something that I noticed when she said that, or that I thought of immediately, was the serial killer Dennis Rader. Oh, Bianca gifted 5. We've got 5 brand new turtles. Welcome to all the brand new turtles. And thank you so much. Bianca is single-handedly keeping this channel afloat. We appreciate you more than you know. Thank you so much. And welcome to new members. Very exciting. We have a big giveaway this month. So if you haven't become a member, maybe consider it. We have a good one coming. It's not just your gift card this month. It'll be fun. So what I was saying was, she mentioned the, showing your sclera, having your eyebrows raised, but keeping them there. And it's a very hard thing to do for more than a second or two if you're not a psychopath. Maybe some of us will find out we might be on the verge of being a psychopath today. No, I'm just kidding. But Dennis Rader, especially in the courtroom when he was explaining things and standing up and all the attention was on him, his eyebrows do that and his face does that repeatedly, and it stays there. And it is just such a strange thing to watch, knowing that if you do it yourself, it's very uncomfortable. On Top X with the $2.99, always starting the show off with a bang. We appreciate you more than you know as well. I hope you guys truly know how much appreciated you are for doing that and how much you're keeping the channel afloat. Very much appreciated. So cool. So she mentioned specifically, if you look at some people's mugshots, well, we're going to do that with Bryan Kohberger. Let me grab it. Give me 2 seconds. If I can find it, my goodness. Here we go. All right, so let me share this and add it. There we go. This is actually 3 of Bryan Kohberger's mugshots. And if you pay attention to his eyes, his foreheads, that's funny. His forehead in each picture, I don't notice that he's raising his eyebrows like that at all. But if you do look up some serial killers, especially some of the very widely known ones from a couple decades ago, that is what you see, very much what you see. And we don't see that here. Now, just because he doesn't have his eyebrows raised doesn't necessarily mean he's not a psychopath. But that is a sign that he very well likely could not be a psychopath. He not only does not raise his eyebrows like that and keep them there in mugshots, but he doesn't do it in his everyday body language either if we look at his baseline. And we can get a baseline. And by baseline, I mean his everyday movements, just how he moves on a regular basis, no matter the situation, no matter, the capacity, what room he's in or what's going on around him. We kind of try and gather the small things that he does that would be something he does on a regular basis. Consistency, right? But we also have to remember, and I want you guys to remember this when we're going over some of the videos that I'm going to share, that at the time they're making these videos, we don't really have a baseline on Bryan Kohberger yet. They're merely making the accusation that he did commit this crime and that he is a psychopath, because you almost have to be to commit a crime like this. And we don't really have a baseline yet in the times that these videos were made. So I find it interesting, some of the things that they say and refer to his body language as maybe not being what they're saying it is. So let me get rid of this picture. And we have a Miss Mandy. Look at you coming in strong when you came back. She says, so happy to be back. I've missed you all. Also, free BK with the $4.99 super sticker, super chat. Yes, girl. We really are truly so happy to have you back. I hope you know that everybody's asked about you. I think that there's a fine line for a lot of people. Like, do I reach out and bother her? Do I not? Do I just say, hey, we're thinking about you? But everybody's asked about you while you were gone. So please know that you are very much wanted and missed. So with everything being said that I just stated, here is a video that I find particularly interesting when it comes to body language and what doctors and professionals say, because this guy is actually going to say the exact opposite that they say. And let me pull it up for you. Super quick videos. Ready, go.
I go to these pitch meetings where these entrepreneurs will go up and pitch these angel investors and stuff like that up in Washington. And you can measure who will pitch based on blink rate. You see a blink rate drop, that's the most interested person in the room. We do the same thing with jury selection. It's so reliable. And you read these articles about like someone breathing into their chest. It takes a while to get good at that with your peripheral vision, because I've taught it to people and they would spend a conversation with someone staring at their chest. And especially if you're talking to a woman, it's a bad idea. So blink rate is incredibly reliable. To recap that skill, I start a conversation. Does it look pretty normal? Is it pretty fast or kind of slow? Then I'm going to look for changes. And that's all I'm looking for in a room of people, is what's changing. This is why body language is so delicate.
Body language is so delicate. And I want you to keep everything he says in this short little video in mind when we're going over the other videos that are coming from these doctors that are reading Bryan Kohberger's body language, because it is so delicate. And in their videos, they don't take a lot into consideration. And we'll go over that. And I just saw a good comment, and I want to put it on screen if I can find it real quick. Nebula says, I don't think we have a clear body language read on BK, nor the interviews. I want to see unblurred interviews. Those facial expressions will tell us a lot. And you nailed it, because I would love to see the unblurred interviews as well, because just like you said, their facial expressions do say a lot. And I agree. We don't have a very good read on Bryan Kohberger's body language because we don't have a very good baseline of him. So I do find it a little odd, some of the things that these doctors said regarding body language. Keep in mind that some of these doctors want you to believe maybe that they're really good at what they do in reading body language, and that's what they do for a living. So they also need to sell it to you that they are good at what they do. They have to be believable to you, but some of the things don't really fit in my opinion. However, we are going to look at some body language of some of the interviews of the people that were supposedly there that night as well. So I'm glad you said that, because we're headed there. You're reading my mind, girlfriend. Okay, so again, body language is very delicate.
It is delicate. And it's so hard for people to do peer-reviewed research on it because there's a million variables. You cannot replicate human behavior that well. And people treat it like it's a pharmaceutical. Like I can put a Tylenol in somebody and I can measure all these responses. And it doesn't really go into a spreadsheet like that. But I'd say it's just so incredibly hard to replicate everything with perfection like that. So then you'll read articles that say someone looks a certain way or does a certain thing that might be deceptive. Like the most common one I hear is someone touches their nose. So someone touching their nose might be being deceptive. If you're just seeing one thing, I would say that almost never means anything.
Keep that in mind. If you see one little movement of Bryan Kohberger in a courtroom setting, maybe he moves his lip just a tad, because we all know when he was in the courtroom, he barely moved a muscle, which I think is kind of hard to do. I mean, those chairs are uncomfortable. Think of the setting you're in. It's stressful. There's doors opening, people coming in and out. There's a judge. There's people that absolutely despise your whole being in that courtroom, thinking you committed this crime. He's possibly being charged with a crime he didn't commit. Of course, you're going to maybe have some reactions to some words that are said. And I don't necessarily agree with some of the next videos that I'm going to show. But just like this man just said, just because somebody scratches their nose doesn't mean they're lying. It can mean they're lying if they always scratch their nose when they're lying. But if we don't have a baseline on that, they could just have allergies. And I don't think these doctors are taking that into consideration.
You want to look for a cluster of behavior. So they started getting nervous, which is a change. It's because I'm asking about where they were on Wednesday night. There's the context. And while they were getting nervous, they also started protecting their genitals with their hands and licking their lips, which is a hygienic gesture that we do. So now I have a change within the context that's appropriate, and there's a cluster of behavior. After that, I screen through culture. Is there some part of this person's culture or background that makes them do that? Like I was with a young person, we were watching a Pakistani person get interrogated. And you know how you commonly see that kind of head shake. They said, oh, shaking his head while he's saying yes. Now we get down to that C. This is culture, which rules out that behavior or gets rid of it. And finally, the least important thing on that list is the checklist. And by checklist, I mean, there is a list of known behaviors that are likely to be deception. And if you're in body language, you deal in likelihood. That's all we deal in. Some people say they're 100% sure on stuff, and I'm skeptical. But we deal in.
He just said himself, when especially people that are interpreting body language and they say, I'm a doctor in it, I'm 100%. He just said, I'm skeptical of somebody who says that, because that's just not how it is. There's so many things that come into play when it comes to body language. You can't just see Bryan Kohberger sitting in a courtroom, excuse me, 2 times and say that his body language means this or that. It's very difficult. Now, in the contrary, I can't do it being a devil's advocate either. You know, I can't sit here and say, oh, I'm completely right. But we can look at things and maybe play devil's advocate and say, yeah, but this could also mean this. And that's what I want to do with you guys today. So even this guy said, it depends the context. It depends what's happened in their life. It depends what room they're in. It depends what's going on. Everybody's going to act different in different situations. And just like LogHens just said that they did an interview, I did a recorded interview or video interview for an international company once, and I did all of the serial killer indicators when I got to see it on replay. There are things we just innately do that are just natural to our very own specific body language that might look different to somebody else. Maybe we, have a little tick and raise our shoulder here and there, which actually a half shrug is an indication of being deceptive. Well, maybe my bra strap is bothering me and I'm trying to, wiggle it. There's a lot of different things that come into play. So yeah, that was a great comment. Makes a lot of sense. Oh, Sleuther with the $9.99 super sticker. I appreciate you so much. Oh, look at your hair. So pretty. I swear I have the most good looking group of people over here. You guys are so beautiful. For real. All right. So what I'm going to do next is play this video. And this is Dr. G. And I actually have a lot of respect for Dr. G. He does go over body language. That's mostly what he does on his channel. He's very intelligent. He studied psychology. And I like the way he presents his information. He's very easy to watch and listen to. He explains things very well. But there's some things that I disagree with, and it's hard for him, in my opinion, to have a baseline on Bryan Kohberger when the rest of the world doesn't either. Let's get this one started.
A couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. What we're going to be looking at today are clips of videos that have interesting body language. The first video we're watching is actually from his arraignment video. Now, I know this was from a while ago, but it also has some of the freshest body language because he had...
1 second before he gets completely started. Jeff actually makes a really good point. You can also misinterpret body language when you look at a video of someone in slow motion, or my very favorite, which I steer very clear of, are screenshots, right? We know a couple channels that do a lot of screenshots, changing the colors of things and such. Not that it's bad. I mean, that's a part of thinking outside the box. I think it's just not my cup of tea because we can misinterpret what is going on in that photo or a slow motion video very, very quickly because it looks different. Colors might look different. A glance that was shared, I personally think that looks weird in the picture. I really do, but that's because it's a picture of it. And maybe if we go back to the video, maybe it doesn't look as weird. I personally still think that looks a little weird, I'm not going to lie, but it can very much be misinterpreted. Jeff also says the glance that Steve G gives to Jack D at the memorial service is a perfect example. Watch at actual speed. It doesn't look the same. And you're absolutely right as far as if we take a screenshot of something. For instance, I remember seeing a picture of Jack D in the back of the cop car, and his hands were like rested down. And just the angle it was at, it almost looked like his hands could be really red, like they had bruising on them. But if you go back and just simply watch the video, it doesn't look like that at all in real life. So that's a really, really good point that you make, Jeff. All right. Let's get started on this one. He's going to interpret one of these first times that we see Bryan Kohberger in the courtroom. There's a couple things I disagree with.
Hadn't been in court over and over and over again yet, so we're going to get to look at some things early on. And this is also something that his defense team noticed. They saw my video on this previously, and they put it in one of their filings. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
I find that interesting. Dr. G just said that he did a video on Bryan Kohberger interpreting his body language, and Bryan Kohberger's defense team took that video and filed it in with all of their stuff regarding Bryan Kohberger. And what I think they were going to do is kind of exactly what I'm doing today, is say, look how misinterpreted this can be. Look how many differences of opinion there can be. Somebody could take one of his movements without a baseline and say he's a psychopath, whereas another person can turn around and say, oh no, that's prime example of autism behavior.
All right, let's just jump right in. One of the things that really stands out about Bryan Kohberger is that the mask goes away as quickly as it comes on.
I disagree with that. I don't think Bryan Kohberger has a mask at all. In fact, he has the exact opposite. We don't see his facial expressions change. I know he's talking about that little smirk he just gave to Ann Taylor. To me, you're in a courtroom, you look at your lawyer, you give a smirk. It's a sign of respect, almost like, thank you for being here with me. I see you. We're both present. That's what I think I don't think that that's putting on a mask. That's just a respect thing. And a small baseline I've noticed of Bryan Kohberger in the small bits of information we have on him is for him, respect seems to be a big deal. We've heard him say it once, at least to the judge. He gives a smirk, or not a smirk, but like a respectful share of a quick smirk or something along those lines to his lawyer often. He does something similar when he's being pulled over more than once. I don't think it's a mask. I think it's just him showing some sort of respect.
Someone that shows so little emotion on his face. That's why anything that we get stands out so much. You very rarely see anything in the brow. There doesn't have to be much in the mouth. He doesn't do a lot of soothing behaviors. He doesn't touch his face. He doesn't do a lot of the things that most people do in court. And when you see him actually demonstrate or try to demonstrate emotion for a second, it's always so brief. Now, I know people are not actually going to be happy to be in court, so I'm not saying he should have a big smile on his face, but it is interesting how quick the flash is.
We have some people on Zoom here too, so we're going to hide you. Okay, let's get on the record, please.
And he goes back to it.
1 second, I want to address this. Jamie McCready says, love you, Logan. Thank you so much for all you do. Oh, you are just so gorgeous. And I said that last time you sent a super chat. So gorgeous. I love how your hair in that picture frames your face. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Jamie McCready. We appreciate you for being here and always tuning in and being present with us. That means more than you know, truly. There was another comment too. There was 2 comments. Here it is. Nebula says, what's always got me crazy in my head is that not every single person sees one person the same exact way. So we have to make room for perspective of individuals in the story they're telling. Yes, absolutely. So what she's saying is, the way I see Dr. G, somebody else might see Dr. G differently and interpret his own body language different than the next person. It could mean something. It's all about culture, context. Somebody could say, do you need me to bring something back from the store, and have a straight face? And to me, it might come off as, gosh, I'm a burden. They think that I need them to bring me something back from the store. I could just take that wrong just because their face is not showing any emotion, rather than me personally, I would smile at them and say, hey, I'm running to the store. Do you need me to bring anything back for you? To let them know that it's an open invitation. Whatever you need, I got you. Somebody else might interpret that differently. Exactly what you're saying. Complete sense. Makes complete sense. And we're not going to, this is a fairly long video. I think it's like 30 minutes, and we're not going to go over the whole video. There's just a specific couple of things in here I like.
His default position, which is to stare and to not really blink much. I know the angle's a little bit weird, but he really has an incredibly low blink rate, and that's always stood out to me.
What's funny is Dr. G is trying to say Bryan Kohberger has a low blink rate, which has always stood out to him, meaning he thinks he's a psychopath because of it. We just heard the guy before this, who's also a professional and expert in body language, say somebody's blink rate being, not as quick as somebody else's doesn't mean they're a psychopath at all. In fact, if their blink rate changes to being faster when a specific thing is said over and over and over, let's say we hear the word Kaylee over and over, and every time Kaylee is spoken about, we blink faster, then that is proof that that name is bothering you. But Bryan Kohberger just naturally having a slow blink rate means literally nothing.
Thank you. Okay, we are now on the record in the state of Idaho versus Bryan C. Kohberger. We covered your rights, the charges against you, and the maximum penalties if you're found guilty or if you plead guilty.
Now, as they're talking about maximum penalties, you see a big swallow after that. You're already seeing some actual anxiety build up when he thinks about the consequences of this, which, as we know now, he's trying desperately to avoid.
Maximum penalty.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? when somebody is directing towards you in a courtroom, you're in a jail jumpsuit, and somebody is saying to you, death is the maximum penalty, I'd probably be swallowing pretty hard myself. I mean, you have to take that into consideration, the context of this. He's in a courtroom and what he is facing, what he's being accused of. Somebody who, in my opinion, somebody who is sitting in this courtroom and they did not commit this crime, 1,000% provable they did not commit this crime, is probably going to have very similar actions to what Bryan Kohberger just did when they're accusing you of it. Because you know inside your head you didn't do it, right? So you're building up. It would make me angry. I surely would have a lot more visible emotions on my face than Bryan Kohberger did. If somebody's accusing you of doing something you didn't do, you're going to definitely show some response to some of the things that's being said. I would think that's more so natural rather than he's a psychopath. He's going to get into Bryan Kohberger clenching his jaw. And real quick, I just want to say something about that, but let me find the page that I wrote it on. Okay. So there's a difference between jaw clenching in a psychopath and jaw clenching in somebody who has autism. And I think that's very important because there's several times that several different body language experts have spoken on Bryan Kohberger clenching his jaw. Now, body language characteristics of somebody who has autism and they're clenching their jaw, it could mean they have sensory overload, anxiety, they're stimming, and they're trying to release some physical tension. Now, I always found that before I even looked any of this up today, just to get the correct wording on what I wanted to say, every time I heard somebody talk about Bryan Kohberger's clenching his jaw at certain times, my very initial thought was, oh no, he's stimming. I could be wrong, but you're in a courtroom. Think of this setting. You can't just stim like openly. You know, if you shake your foot or, mess with your hands or fingers to stim, to self-soothe, you can't do that in a courtroom. So you have to release that and do some self-soothing behavior. I personally clench my jaw all the time. People will ask me all the time, what's wrong? I'm not doing it because I'm angry or upset. It's just how I self-soothe. I bite the inside of my lip and the skin in the back of my mouth, which then looks like I'm clenching my jaw and my jaw muscle is flexing, right? I think it's very possible that Bryan Kohberger is clenching his jaw for self-soothing rather than being a psychopath. So, all right.
If you're found guilty or if you plead guilty.
If you're found guilty, there's a big swallow there. So he does recognize the real possibility he's going to be found guilty. Already thinking about this way back at the arraignment.
So I'm going to start with the rights. You have a constitutional right to have an attorney represent you throughout these proceedings. Having your name there, is that your correctly spelled complete name?
Yes, it is.
Is that the correct birth date underneath your name?
Yes.
Are those the correct?
Now you'll notice when he agrees with something, he has a subtle nod. That becomes more important later. But I just want you to pay attention to that he has this unconscious body language when he's agreeing.
He does. That is actually true. I've noticed that myself. When Bryan Kohberger agrees with something, and it's not necessarily agreeing. It is him, in my opinion, understanding. It is him telling the person with his body language that is speaking to him, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily think it is in agreement like, yes, I did this. I don't think that's what it is. Me personally, in my opinion, I think it is, I hear you. I understand you. It's a sign of respect. And that to me, again, is pretty important to Bryan.
last four digits of your social security number?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to read you the charges on the indictment.
So this next sequence is something that I talked about previously, which is probably what caught the attention of Bryan Kohberger and his attorney. Essentially, in their filing, they said that they should not allow cameras in the courtroom because of body language analyses like these. Now, what confused me at the time was that my video had, at that point when they made the filing, like 20,000 views, 25.
We don't need to listen to his
because it's starting
views.
to get too intense. So as he's reading off the charges, for the most part, he's able to keep his emotions under wraps, but there is leakage right now. There are little things that we're seeing.
40 code section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state.
You're starting to see the jaw clench a little bit. And that's anger and hostility.
I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. First of all, look at Bryan Kohberger's eyes. He's not even really fully paying attention to what the judge is saying. He is worried about whatever's going on the table. He's distracted right now. So I don't even think he's hearing the judge fully in this moment. To me, that is not anger and hostility. We saw him clench his jaw just earlier, and it wasn't. How come that wasn't anger and hostility? I feel like everything is open to interpretation. And Dr. G, in my opinion, is not taking into consideration the magnitude of the chair that Bryan Kohberger is sitting in this moment, and in every moment that he's sitting in a courtroom. If you have never been in that position, you couldn't even imagine what it feels like. You're not just sitting there listening to a judge. There's other things going on around you that you're paying attention to. We do things naturally that's self-soothing. I mean, look at all of you guys in here that have said, oh, I do this and I do that and I do this. And it could be interpreted as being a psychopath, but that's not what it means all the time. There are very specific things that show you could possibly be a psychopath. That is after we have a baseline on that person and we know what their natural body language movements are just in their everyday life. And then we can see when certain words are brought up, their reaction to it. I don't necessarily think that Dr. G truly understands the magnitude of what it's like to sit in that chair and either be accused of a crime or be accused of a crime that you truly did not commit. I also think he's looking at this from biased eyes. He thinks Bryan Kohberger did that, which is fine. I'm looking at it from unbiased eyes, or maybe a little bit in the opposite direction, and can say that that's not, it doesn't just mean one thing. It can mean many different things.
Idaho did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately.
And there he was again quickly. The mask goes on, the mask goes off. Just because you look at somebody, they're not necessarily expecting a polite smile every single time. So it's interesting that he chose to do that for his attorney right there.
Bullcrap. I'm one of those people who, if I walk out of the gas station and there's somebody walking towards me, I give them that quick smile, whether it's a full smile or a half smile, or just kind of purse my lips together and nod to say, like, I acknowledge that you're a human being and you're walking past me. You looked at me, I looked at you. It's a sign of respect. I feel like some of this is so outlandish and ridiculous.
Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Logan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Logan, from which she died. Count 3.
So listening to that, you're seeing him shift around a lot more. He's not able to focus as much. He seems a lot more uncomfortable. So hearing these names read out loud, he is reacting to this. Now,
have you ever sat in a courtroom chair? Very uncomfortable. I'd be switching around in it too. Mandy made a good comment and said that she was robbed when she worked at a bank many years ago. And there was a song playing in the background. And now every time she hears that song, she has a physical reaction to it. You can see it in her body language. She might cry. She might, she might breathe heavier. She might blink faster. I did find it interesting here that when the judge was reading the victims' names and the crimes, Bryan Kohberger's blink rate didn't change, but he didn't speak on that. He didn't say, oh, strange, his blink rate didn't change. That would be, blink rate is probably the number one thing, or very high on the list for body language, that you can tell somebody's having a reaction to something. We don't know what that reaction is. We just know that there's a reason they're blinking faster to whatever they're hearing or seeing. But Bryan Kohberger's blink rate didn't change when he read off the charges. So how come he didn't mention that?
We're going to see stronger reactions as we keep going. But for Madison, you're already seeing some discomfort build up.
Murder in the first degree.
And you're also starting to see his jaw clench more. That's more anger and hostility coming up.
Or self-soothing.
A felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Lake County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought.
Critic Rick makes a good point. He says, another thing that Dr. G expert forgets is that Bryan Kohberger has been an assistant teacher, etc. And he's been in positions of control in the past, meaning when a person is used to being in charge all the time, their behavior can change when suddenly they're on the opposite side of that spectrum. And that is an excellent point. Could you imagine how out of control he feels in this moment? Whether you have control issues or not, this sitting in a courtroom. Now, I've obviously never been charged or somebody said I committed a crime this heinous. So I couldn't even imagine what that is like. I know what being accused of a stupid small crime feels like. And that was one of the worst things ever in my life. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And maybe Bryan Kohberger is shifting in his chair because they're hard and uncomfortable. We know he sits very still. Just because somebody moves, my leg gets numb and goes to sleep. We don't know, Bryan Kohberger's might do that too, and you have to switch sides. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because one word was said, boom, I have a reaction. It's not how it works. They're usually way more subtle than that anyways.
Kill and murder Kayla Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing Kayla Gonzalez, from which she died. Count 4, murder in the first degree. That's a felony.
Now, this charge in particular seems to be the one that he's having the strongest reaction to. You can see his lips pucker a little bit. You're seeing his jaw continue to clench. It looks like it's building up right now.
4001, 4002, 4003, and 400.
And now you're seeing him move around in his chair. He's looking less comfortable. He's having a harder time sitting still. That means there's energy moving through him right now. That there's something about this that's very activating to him.
There's always energy moving through us, you guys. I don't know. I feel like that this is kind of silly in a sense. So it seems to me, in my opinion, that any movement Bryan Kohberger makes or will ever make in the courtroom that Dr. G sees, he's going to say that it's a reaction to something and that makes him a psychopath. So what? Is Bryan Kohberger not supposed to breathe? He's never supposed to swallow. He's never supposed to adjust himself in his chair. He's never, like, come on. These are not actions that are showing I'm a psychopath. I'm having this huge reaction to something. These could also be misinterpreted as maybe his butt is numb because, 3 to 6 hours before he sat in this courtroom, he was sitting in a cell, not his own cell. He was moved to a different cell at 6 a.m. this day. And he was sitting in another cell with other people awaiting a hearing. And it's really uncomfortable. You're shackled. You have cuffs around your hands and you sit on this steel bench and it's really uncomfortable and your butt starts to hurt. and then you move into a courtroom where the chairs are, look, they're like 172 years old. He's probably uncomfortable. Could you imagine how much like your back would start hurting? It's just ridiculous. Bianca and a $5 sending love and a big thank you to you all for being here. Thank you so, so much, Bianca. So sweet. I appreciate you so much. So I'm not just going to keep disagreeing with Dr. G, but I want to take a look at this one here because this I think is a little bit important, right? We're going to look at this video, and this is the video of Chris Watts putting his hands,
Hey everybody, Dr. G here.
Putting his hands on his head. Remember, if you guys saw the Watts case and followed that case, when Chris Watts was in the neighbor's living room and they were playing the security footage from that morning that he unalived his wife and children, Chris Watts came in there, saw what was being seen on the TV, and put his hands on his head. And that's kind of how he stayed for a while uncomfortably. But I'll let Dr. G give his explanation.
I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today I'm going to show you how to become a lie detector. We're going to be looking at the case of Chris Watts, a man who murdered his wife and children and is currently serving life in prison. Previously, I analyzed his interviews with local news. What we're going to be looking at today is him watching surveillance footage from his neighbor's house. Before we get started, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go.
Load my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers.
So what we're looking at is police body cam footage. Chris Watts obviously standing in front of this police officer.
We'll get to the spot where he... There we go.
Now look how stiff his posture is. His arms are pretty stiff. Even when he pointed at the TV, his arm looked a little bit uncomfortable. He's just sort of swinging it up. He is very stiff, and we oftentimes do that when we're trying to hide. We've got freeze, flight, and then fight. We've got adrenaline coursing through our veins. We go through those 3 stages. Right now, he's in the freeze stage. Having a policeman standing this close to him is making him want to freeze a little bit. So he is trying to move less. Watch this again.
I'll do on the side, like everything. Easier to load everything out there, all the tools I had to bring in.
Now watch this. He was trying not to look at the police officer because I think it probably makes him uncomfortable. And he let out a brief sigh when he looked at the door. He wants to get out of here. And when our body gets into that freeze, flight, fight mode, the flight is very strong. So when he looks at the front door, he really does feel relief wanting to leave the situation. But look how strongly he tries not to look at the police officer. All right, so now he's starting to get more uncomfortable. Now, if you're laying down and you put your hands behind your head, it's a way of comforting ourselves. We feel comfortable in that situation. If you're standing and doing it, think about it like this. If you do this, it's very hard to breathe through your chest when you put your hands on your head like that. What it forces our body to do, it forces us to breathe with our diaphragm. And when you breathe with your diaphragm, it makes you feel more calm. So sometimes people do this as a way to soothe themselves, to feel calmer. You don't realize you're doing that necessarily. You don't think about it in that sense. But right now, watching these videos, not necessarily knowing everything that's going to be on them, having a police officer standing this close to him, he's getting very uncomfortable. I think there is a lot of adrenaline pumping through his body right now.
So I do agree with that. Actually, I feel like that's uncomfortable. I would have to force myself to do that and keep it there. It might be the breathing thing. I do know that it is harder to breathe when you put your hands like that. So not sure why a lot of people do that when they are, went running or whatever. But Chris Watts definitely, his skin color is even changing. He looks sickly suddenly, right? Like that is definitely a movement, a body language, a large one that you can tell that's probably not part of his baseline, where there's something huge happening right now.
Now, if you'll notice, he's biting his lip. We oftentimes do things around the mouth to make ourselves feel good.
Okay, so if you remember, you might not, which is fine, but if you remember back when the body cam footage, the first or second day it came out, I posted in my community page a side-by-side of Hunter Johnson and Chris Watts, because when I saw Hunter Johnson put his hands on his head, I immediately thought of Chris Watts. So if Dr. G wants to say this about Chris Watts, then he must be saying the same thing about Hunter Johnson's body language, right? I mean, you can't pick and choose. It's body language. There's no room for interpretation. It all means the same, right? So then what did Hunter Johnson do to where he has to make such a large movement of putting his hands on top of his head and keeping it there? Because again, it's uncomfortable. It's not a comfortable thing to do when you're just standing up. Maybe when you're laying down, yeah, but standing up, no. It's even harder to breathe that way.
You're probably not going
My bad, I ruined that. Well, so I guess Dr. G says
slow down.
the same thing must be going on with Hunter Johnson in that moment, right? So in that moment, Hunter Johnson is having the same feelings as Chris Watts did. Well, my goodness, why would that be? My goodness, isn't that something strange? Very interesting. Now, I want to take a quick look at Dylan's body language in her interview, the very first interview she did here. If you notice, not only does she have her legs crossed, she also has her arms crossed, and then she also pulls her hands inside of her sleeves. Usually, this is you're very uncomfortable, you're vulnerable, you could be scared. This is protecting when you put your arms in front of your vital organs, you're protecting yourself, you're self-soothing, especially with your hands in your sleeves. She's doing a lot of I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to be here. I mean, who would really? But I always think, my gosh, if that was me, I would feel like, and let me remind you, I have found a roommate deceased when I was in my early 20s. And the way I was alerted to something being wrong was because was because my dog wouldn't stop barking. So I got up in the middle of the night, I checked, and my roommate was deceased. There wasn't blood everywhere, but my goodness, it's pretty similar, right? I mean, the action of finding somebody you live with deceased, no matter how they're deceased, is probably going to bother you and be traumatic. So I would think if I was in an interview room like that and something like this just happened and I didn't do anything wrong, I would be like, let's go. What do you want to see? I've got this information. I have this information. I have that information. I don't know if I would be trying to make myself look as small and covered as possible because I'm that uncomfortable. I don't know. I might be a little more animated than her. I don't know. But these are body languages. This is the body language of somebody who definitely doesn't want to be here, is trying to protect herself from what? Guess she'll have to tell us someday.
What you asking? What's your date of birth?
Oh, so she can She can stim with her hands, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? But when Bryan Kohberger stims in his own way, that makes him a psychopath. It has to go both ways. You can't. That's self-soothing. That's being really uncomfortable. She's messing with her fingers. Her legs are crossed, and she has it in front of her vital organs. I mean, she just cannot sit still. That's nervous energy going all the way through her body. Remember what Dr. G said? That's nervous energy just going all the way through her body, and she's got to get it out somehow. Why are you so nervous? If you didn't do anything wrong, why are you so nervous? Why are you and Hunter so nervous? Even her voice, she's trying to sound like she's the saddest little toddler that he's ever met. All of that put together has to mean something in body language world, right? You would think so. I'm not going to play her full interview. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears here real quick because this irritated me, I'll tell you. Let me make sure I don't have anything else. Okay. So we're going to switch gears real quick because I wanted to share this on today's live. Do you guys remember when Dateline had their leak and they provided this lady, also known on YouTube as Get Industries, and she did the recreation, the 3D animation of 1122 King Road, where their rooms are, the actions that happened that night. And she got all of that information from Dateline, who got it all from the crime scene files, the pictures. Yeah, well, she put out a little clip of a new video that she did. But what's interesting is I commented on this video because it pissed me off, and she responded. Now I'm just waiting for her response back. But let's take a look at this. First, I want to remind you of the very first video she did and how at one point we played the video and there were like 30 different inconsistencies, flat out lies. It's difficult for me to watch it because there's so many untruths in it that it gets really frustrating and it really gets under my skin. So I'm going to play this one and I'm probably going to stop it and go over it up for a minute.
With all the new evidence released, we have a better idea of what happened to the Idaho 4 college students in Moscow the night that Bryan Kohberger unalived them. With all that...
First of all, she's reading a script. You can see her eyes move. She's reading off of something. But crime scene photos where? Because what she is going to show is nothing we've ever seen. So is she saying that in this leak of information, she got crime scene photos that are unredacted? Because that is the only way she'd be able to get this information that she's going to show in this video. And they want to... Okay. It's upsetting to me. It's upsetting to me because when Ann Taylor asked for more time because of the leak, they wouldn't give her not even a minute more time to defend her client from all of this false information and lies that has now been publicized to the world by Dateline. And they thought that that was just perfectly fine and it wasn't going to interfere in the trial whatsoever. Absolutely it would. Do you know how many millions of people saw that? But don't worry, because she's back to give you more inconsistencies and lies.
New evidence. I made a new illustration to show what investigators believed happened, and this first recreation will focus on Kaylee and Maddie in Maddie's room. This is Maddie's room, and everything you see here has been recreated according to the photographs and police documentation.
How would she get that information? Because in the pictures that were given to us, They were all fully redacted and we couldn't see any of this. So for her to recreate this, who gave her the unredacted photos? Where did she get them from?
Here we can see how Maddie and Kaylee were positioned, along with both blankets and the 2 pillows. We can also see the splatters on the walls, which indicates the direction that splatters came from. Let's look at how the splatters tell.
Well, what's interesting is you see this big splatter on the wall to the left. There's no lines coming from that at all. So the most important splatter from Kaylee, you didn't measure at all?
This information. Here's an example of splatters hitting a floor from a single impact. To find the direction of where it came from, you would draw a line through the tail and the center of the droplet, as illustrated here. The tail is like an arrow pointing in the direction of where it came from, so the source where it came from would be in the opposite direction.
That is true. And if you remember, maybe I would say about 2 months ago, I actually went over blood stain and blood pattern pretty much in depth. And I told you guys how to get the measurements and how those measurements would tell you exactly where the weapon was and what angle it came from, which then could also tell you how tall the perpetrator was.
Now we'll measure the droplet, which will tell us what angle the droplet hit the surface at. This is simple math that can be done with a calculator, and I'll show you how. You take the width of 4 millimeters in this case and divide it by a length of 6.8 millimeters. Notice how we exclude the tail and round it off to the length measurement. Now let's do the calculator work. We enter the width first, 4 millimeters, divided by the length, 6.8 millimeters, and this equals 0.588 in infinity. Now go to the trig function shown here on this calculator and select the second key. This will inverse the sine key, and once you press it, you will have the simple results of the angle that the splatter came from.
36.
In this example, it's 36 degrees.
A 36-degree angle is where this specific blood droplet came from. However, they could then also tell exactly where that weapon was at that 36 degrees, but how tall the perpetrator was as well. And apparently they didn't do that actually in this crime.
Now we'll go back and do that.
One second. I want to address a new member. We have Phyllis as a new member. Welcome, my love. Good to see you. Thank you for being here and joining us. And yes, there was also a comment that stated there were no puncture wounds or punctures in the blanket. So they weren't sleeping under the covers, or else there would be slits in the blanket. And we didn't see that at all. There's so very, very much wrong with this.
Each droplet. When done with that, we draw our directional line.
Oh, that's so sweet. Phyllis gave us 5 memberships. So we have 5 new members, and that means we have 5 new turtles. And we call ourselves turtles because it's green, and why not? We all like pizza, right? Thank you so much. We appreciate you so, so, so much. That's amazing. Amazing. So she's showing here all the different degrees that the angles of the blood droplets were, which is kind of interesting that she would even have that much information.
Each droplet. Where all the lines come together is what is called the area of convergence. The last step now is to project our angles off of the center of the droplets, running parallel to its line. Straight up from the area of conversion, where all these angles cross, this is the location of where the splatters came from. I used this method from the forensic photos and came up with this illustration with blue laser lights shown here. Adding a marker at each location where these lines intersect tells us where the area of violence took place, and this helps us in recreating the event.
Do you know how far from the truth this is? Because if you remember, we have 100% Kaylee's blood on the second floor, not just on the pong table, but around that area and by the stairwell going down to the first floor in that big open spot. It's 100% Kaylee's blood, no mixture. So if this took place the way she's saying it, then it would have only been possible for there to be Kaylee and Maddie mixture anywhere in the house. If there was one person, one perpetrator, and they killed Maddie first and Kaylee second, when they left that room, whatever came off of that knife would be a mixture every single time. And that is not what we see. We see 100% Kaylee in some areas with no minor. And in some areas, we see Kaylee as the major and Maddie as the minor. So either we've got different perpetrators or we have different weapons. There is no other possibility to that. So this is absolutely untrue.
Other observations that help us are visual clues, like how the condition of the blankets were left.
But isn't that so creepy just to think about, though? Like, ugh.
Let's focus on this area on the blanket here. During Bryan Kohberger's attack on Maddie and Kaylee, his knee bunched up the blankets in this area. As he backed off the bed, it left an impression that was clean of any blood splatter.
Oh, weird. Because then how would the knife sheath be right there? Wouldn't he take it down with him when his knee backed off? Stop it. This is so far from the truth. First of all, Murphy could have jumped up there. You don't know that it's one perpetrator putting his knee on the bed. You just don't know that. It's impossible to know that. This is also coming from the same person who told us right before a trial was supposed to happen that Bryan Kohberger sat on the white fluffy chair in Xana's room. And we know that's absolutely not true because it was a handprint reaching up from the ground to grab onto the chair. It was Xana's own handprint. Her hands were bleeding. Her fingers were to cut through the bone. This is unbelievable.
In this crime scene photo, you can see how his knees bunched up the blanket and creased the fabric. It remained that way untouched until police arrived some 7 hours later. As we inspect the other side of this area, we can see where the knife sheath was left. Here's a photograph of that knife sheath. The length of it was 13 inches long, and the tip was slightly under Maddie's left thigh and hip region. Moving on to the white blanket, this item tells us a lot. In observing the blood spatter, we can see that it's only coming from one direction, which is from the head of the bed to the foot of the bed. In addition to this, we can see that there was no blood spatter underneath the blanket. This and the lack of blood splatter, where Bryan Kohberger's legs were, tell us that these two blankets were here the entire time. One last point on this. When you remove the blanket and you see the sheet, the lower half of the sheet has no blood splatter on it, and that's because the blanket protected it from blood splatter. This basic...
But Kaylee wasn't even in the bed, remember? If we want to take Dylan's word, Dylan said Kaylee was in the living room dancing with Murphy. She wasn't sleeping in the bed. Kaylee being in the living room dancing with Murphy is the only way that we would have 100% Kaylee's blood with no minor mixture with it in the second floor period. So none of that is true.
Evidence review helped investigators to determine that Kaylee was in bed sleeping with Maddie at the time of the attack. Now I'm going to play this animation for you for what's believed to have happened. This is a very mild animation, but if you're sensitive to depictions of crime, you may want to skip this part.
No, we'll watch, thank you.
This is how Kaylee and Maddie were found. But just 1 minute before this moment, they were simply sleeping, and Kohberger was standing over them.
That is a complete lie. I don't know how... Okay, so if she got the crime scene photos unredacted from the police, obviously, or a leak from somewhere, that's what they're telling her happened. That's not true. That's not even possible. There is no way Kaylee was sleeping in this bed when she was attacked. It's the blood spatter itself tells you that. It's just not possible. And then we have that swipe of Kaylee, 100% Kaylee's blood, no mixture, coming from outside of the door, swiping the door as it comes in. So Kaylee was obviously either somehow walked into the room, which she didn't, which shows to me that she was carried into the room and placed in the bed. Again, Kaylee doesn't have defensive wounds either. So she was not fighting back.
He formed a plan in his head, knowing he would have to act fast to attack them both at the same time. And that's what he did. Here's how this is believed to have played out.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wait, I thought his knee was on the bed. What the heck just happened to his knee being on the bed? You guys can't have it both ways. This is horrific. Oh my God. Trigger warning. Jesus. My goodness. If Kaylee stop.
The attack. I'll pick up from there in my next video, where we will go over all that, including a recreation of what happened to Xana and Ethan.
I apologize. I actually didn't see that ending part. I got so pissed when I saw it. I thought it was just the explanation of what happened. I am so sorry. Whew. That's traumatic. So my comment was, I was pissy when I saw this yesterday. My comment yesterday was, how are you allowed to state blatant lies as fact? Xana never went up to the 3rd floor stairs. Blood evidence proves that. How is this even allowed? And she said, I'd like to hear, she spelled hear wrong. I'd like to hear your side of what blood evidence you are referring to. And I said, where is there blood evidence that Xana went up to the 3rd floor stairs? Because she talked about in her previous video that Xana interrupted and went up the stairs. And she said that there was blood evidence of Xana on the 3rd floor stairs, which there's not. And I said, also, if Kaylee was in the bed with Maddie, how is there 100% Kaylee's blood evidence in the living room and stairwell down to the 1st floor? Kaylee, 100% major, no minor. So either Kaylee was attacked on the 2nd floor, or there was a completely different weapon used on Kaylee only. There was 0 blood transfer from Kaylee and Maddie to Xana and Ethan. Either different perpetrators or different weapons completely. I won't even get into the swipes of blood, Kaylee's blood going from outside to inside the door frame in Maddie's room, proving Kaylee was not in the bed with Maddie. There's too much proof that Kaylee was not only not in the bed, but also not sleeping. Even Dylan said Kaylee was up dancing in the living room with her dog. So I'm just waiting to see what she says back. But this whole video was super annoying to me. I do have a bunch of stuff lined up. I actually had to delete some stuff that I did have for today. But as we are waiting for something to drop in this case, because I promise you, with everything I love, there is something coming. I don't know exactly what it is yet. I've been saying this for a week or two now. But something is coming in this case. I'm just absolutely waiting for it. So while we're waiting for it, this week, we're going to go back over some interviews. We're going to be talking about body language. I've reached out to a body language expert to see if we can get them on. Obviously, I'll hype that up if I can get them to come on. We're talking about a date and time right now, which I think would be great. And other than that, yeah, we're going to go over some more interviews and some little odds and ends and stuff that I found. So you know how we do it over here. We talk about all different stuff. We don't just usually stick to one topic. We try and fit in as much information in one live as we can. So that's what we have today. No, that is not what we have today. Hold on. I have something for you. We have 1 minute. We have we have our Bronx's buddy of the day. This is Dude. We have a subscriber named Christine. I think you guys have probably seen her a lot in here lately. This is her baby, and his name is Dude. And I think that's so cute. He is just so stinking adorable. I think Christine sent me Dude 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I have lots of Bronx's buddies of the days to share with you. So yes, keep them coming. We love Bronx's buddy of the day. In fact, we're working on merch for dog shirts that'll say Bronx's buddy of the day. We have a bunch of stuff coming in the not so distant future for this channel. So, hey, One, good to see you. Dude is awesome. We love Dude. All right, guys, do something nice for yourself today. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your animals. If it is nice where you live, please go out for a nice walk tonight or do something nice for yourself. It's beautiful out, at least around here. So we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.